Let's go back to one of our top stories tonight, the ongoing political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, and we've heard today that over 155 politically motivated murders have taken place in that province since the year 2011, and more than 300 related cases have been investigated since 2018. For more on this, let's speak to Willem Els, who is with the Institute for Security Studies. A very good evening to you, Willem. Good to have your time. So when you look at what we heard today from that briefing by the police minister, 348 suspects charged, but only 62 convictions. That's hardly an overwhelming success, is it?
Good evening to you. Yes, it's not very high. We also see that of that convicts, that all the people that have been charged, 17 of them have died in custody of natural causes, presumably. So, but you know, if we look at this, at these charges, on the one hand, you have to look at, you know, it's alarming that we have so many cases, so many murders. But if you look at the background of the murder rate in South Africa, and you see where they deployed this task team now to dedicate their time and their effort and resources towards solving these cases, you know, we see almost a 50% in arrests if you look at the amount of cases where we have a single-digit solvency rate when it comes to murders in general in South Africa. So on the one hand, it is very high, but on the other hand, we see that with the success of this task team, maybe that is the way to go with all the murder cases in South Africa.
And is this task team then, which was established shortly after the beginning of President Ramaphosa's term as head of state, the first term, is this basically proving to be worth the price tag?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, if you look at the political parties that have been involved, with the councillors that have been targeted, etc., we see that 31 councillors from the ANC has been targeted, compared to 14 of the IFP and 4 of the NFP. You know, and the challenge that we have here is, what is the accountability of these parties? Because clearly these assassinations are based on rivalry, bargaining for post, you know, taking opposition out of the way, etc., within the party ranks, and that is really alarming.
And there's a top 3, unfortunately, when you look at politically motivated murders suspected or confirmed in KwaZulu-Natal. It's the ANC, it's the IFP, and the NFP. What do the political parties themselves have to do to help police? Because at this stage, it's their members, their councillors and other officials who are being killed. And in some of these cases, the suspicion is that the murderers are within the organizations themselves.
That is correct. You know, if the murderers themselves are in the organization, you know, those are the guys that are contracting these Nkabis or assassins, the organized crime syndicates that do the dirty work for them. So we see that, as you mentioned, there have been some convictions. There have been some high-profile convictions. But what we are looking at is, we're looking at more convictions within these party ranks, where we know that, you know, if something like that happened within your party, the rivalry, there must be information that might help the police. But it seems that it's not forthcoming.
And we speak about rightfully the 52 councillors who have been shot dead since 2011 to date. But a higher figure, listen to this, 103 officials who work for municipalities or worked for municipalities as political office bearers and officials in political office were killed. And some would then take that, and I wonder if you think it's rightful to say it's linked to the very clear battles for power, but also the battles for access to get fingers in the till at municipal level, local government corruption.
Of course, you know, every candidate, of course, they have their machinery around them, and those are the people that are supporting, that making them strong within the party lines. And we assume that it's some of them that have been taken out. But also, you know, what is very alarming, that what could also be ascribed to these murders is the rivalry and the fight for tenders within these political parties where they are in power.
And the issue of guns, Minister Cele said today that most of the people who are killed in these politically motivated attacks in KwaZulu-Natal, they're shot dead. And I'm looking at the numbers here, for example, if most of the people who've been killed, that's over 100 in the last 12 years or so, only 46 of those guns have been recovered. You have to wonder where the rest are.
That is true, and that is also problematic. It seems to me that our firearms, small arms, light weapons strategy is not working. Maybe we're knocking on the wrong door. Maybe we have to sit back and revise where are these guns coming from. But also we have to up our act in terms of our forensics and our ballistic testing in order to be able to trace these guns and also to identify these people that are selling and providing these guns, because we know that it is organized syndicates. What normally happens in a syndicate like that, when the Nkabis go, they rent the firearms from the syndicate that owns these weapons. They use the firearms, they give it back to these people. So when these people are then arrested, the firearms are not with them in a majority of the cases. So that is a problem. So maybe we should also not only focus on the assassins, but we also should also follow the trail where the firearms are coming from and who is providing these assassins with their firearms.
You make a good point, but I wonder if there's any telling where these guns are sourced from, because are they registered firearms that are perhaps taken from their rightful owners during other crimes? Were they stolen elsewhere? Because even in the task team's briefing today, they say that some of these weapons are linked through ballistics to multiple political murders.
Yeah, that is the indication that these guns are being rented out. But the sad story about this whole thing is, that the main single supplier in the past 10 years of firearms to the criminals is actually the police. We see that the police have lost more than 26,000 firearms that were lost or stolen from the police, and that is the biggest single supplier of these type of firearms to the criminal syndicates. So that is one place where we should start. I think the police should up their act in terms of their control of their firearms, because we know that these people are being targeted. We know that policemen are being murdered for their firearms. So we have to look at a strategy on how to safekeep the firearms of our law enforcement personnel, because that is currently the single biggest supplier of firearms to the syndicates.
Do you expect then, as we go into another election cycle for 2024, Willem, that we're likely to see an increase, in fact, in politically motivated killings?
Based on the past, if we look at what happened with previous elections, unfortunately, yes, we're going to see that it will heat up in these provinces, especially as we mentioned in KwaZulu-Natal. We also see that since the syndicates after the task team have been implemented and formed, we see that according to the minister, 7 of the provinces, the areas of the hotspots have been stabilized, but that is not enough at the moment. We know that it is good inroads. Before these elections, we will have to up our game in terms of that, because we anticipate that these assassins will just increase.
Willem Els, good to speak to you with the Institute for Security Studies.